Now today we just come to the unit 1.2 in the syllabus. So in the unit 1.2 we just discussed about comparisons between the manual and the computerized system, an introduction to the ICT, and some advanced technologies in the ICT, especially look at the internet, World Wide Web, file transfer protocol, email, and simple mail transfer protocol, and different protocols, telnet and cloud computing. So those are just introduction to some of the concepts, and some of the networking concept will be discussed in detail under the networking, but here just you will be given just brief introduction, and at the end you will have a small test based on the content covered in the today lesson. So initially we want to compare computerized systems and the manual system. As you know earlier, most of the organizations are having manual systems. In earlier, if you go to the bank, they did not have any computers. They have done everything by hand. But currently, most of the places are automated or computerized. If you go to the bank, most of the time they are using the computers to process the data. But earlier, remember, most of the banks and other places, they did everything by using hand, not using any computerized system. They did everything manually. Then we need to understand the comparisons between the manual system and the computerized system. When you take the manual system, which has some advantages actually in the manual system, one is it is flexible. The flexible means you can change the manual system the whatever the way you want. It's very flexible. And again, the low cost. No need to buy any software or hardware, resources are not needed. It's very low cost. And no power requirement. Electricity is not needed. Like those are some of the advantages of the manual system. But manual system has some disadvantages also. When you take it is very slow and need more spaces, it generates more error and difficult to get the backups or difficult to duplicate. Some data will be duplicated automatically. Like those are some disadvantages of the manual system. But computerized systems may not be flexible as manual system, but it is very fast. And computerized systems are very high cost because software and the hardware are very expensive, but easy to create the backups. The backup means when a disaster is occurred, we must be able to retrieve the data. Currently, we use the cloud resources. We'll discuss the cloud computing at the end. So, with that cloud resources, we can access to the data easily. You can store the or you can replicate the data to the cloud so that any disaster is occurred, we can retrieve the data very faster. And again, it needs more resource power or electricity is needed. And the main advantage is that in the computer system, you can access to the resources from anywhere at any time. That's the advantage of having the data in computer systems. As you know, you can open the account in Sri Lanka, but you can do the transaction in another country. So that ability is there because of computerized systems. And all the data at all the places will be same. That is what we call the consistent. So like these are, you must be able to find out advantages and disadvantages in both manual systems and the computerized systems. So that you need to understand, because most time in the school term test, they may ask this question just to compare and contrast manual systems and the computerized system. Then they have introduced the term ICT, that is Information and Communication Technology. Now, what is the basic meaning of this one? The thing is actually everything depends on the information. Term ICT, the main thing is how you can use the different technologies to create the information and to manage the information and communicate the information. So in ICT, what we want to do is actually we want to look at how you can use the different technologies to create the information. And once you create the information, we need to manage the information and we need to communicate the information with the others. So that's the main concept behind the ICT. And you can have some idea about both advantages and disadvantages of the ICT. So main advantages is that we can share the information from one location to another location very faster. You can send some documents, video, animation, images from one location to another location very faster. And again with very low cost. With very low cost, we can send the information from one location to another location. And you can access the information from anywhere at any time. And it provides the 24-hour services. You can see these ATMs are working 24 hours. So that provides the service in 24 hours. And space requirements can be reduced because if you take a CD or a small pen drive, you can keep large collection of data. Space requirement can be reduced. And if some products are developed using the computers, the quality of the product will be higher. And again, if you use the computerized systems, we can minimize the paperwork. You can see some exams nowadays can be conducted through online, through the computer based systems. In that case, we don't need to print the papers. So paper cost and printing cost can be minimized. And you can search any information very faster through using some search engines. And again, some sophisticated algorithms are developed to provide very high security and reliability. So those are some of the advantages of ICT. But remember, the ICT has some disadvantages also. That is, some information can be hacked through networks, and viruses are spreading through the network. When some hardware fail, you may lost your some data. And training is needed to work with the computers. And the resources are very expensive. Software, hardware are very expensive. So those are some of the disadvantages of the ICT. Okay, then we'll come to the technology advancement with ICT. So under that we'll discuss about the internet and World Wide Web and mobile communication and mobile computing and the cloud computing. So those will be discussed with this as a next part. Now initially we'll come to the internet. As you know, internet is a network with network. It's a very large network. So initially the US Department of Defense, they have developed a very small network to connect the universities in the USA. So which is we call as ARPANET. But later this network was expanded and again some protocols were developed. Now protocols mean some agreements or rules for the communication. Remember, protocols are the rules or agreement between two parties to make the successful communication. Those are we call as protocols. Now there are a lot of protocols. We'll discuss in detail those protocols in networking. But here we will be given just basic introduction to these protocols. Always we need to have the protocol to make the communication successful. Those are rules or agreements. Now, as an example, if you want to send a letter through the post, we need to follow some rules. If you want to send a letter through the post, you can't just send the letter. First, you have to insert the letter into envelope, and you have to write the destination address correctly, and you have to attach a stamp. Then only it can be sent. That's the protocol. Similarly, in the networking, we have different protocols to make the communication more successful. So, under that, we use this main protocol as a TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol, and Internet Protocol. Remember, this is the main protocol which makes the communication very successful between send and the receiver. So, this TCP/IP, we will discuss in detail how does it provide the reliability, how does it make the connection establishment, how does it make the terminations, how the packets are moving from one location to another location. So, like all the details will be discussed in detail in later. But at the moment, just remember TCP/IP is the main protocol to make the communication between the sender and the receiver very successfully. IP is a protocol. Under that, we'll discuss how does it work, especially IP addressing. As you know, every computer has address or number to identify in the internet, which is equal as IP address. So through that, we can have the very successful communication between the sender and the receiver. So later we'll discuss in detail how these protocols are working under the networking. But at the moment, just remember TCP is the main protocol in the internet just to communicate sender and the receiver. For that one, it has defined some rules, some algorithms, some techniques are there. We'll discuss all these things in detail actually. Then you will get very good understanding how does the computer communicate with other computers in detail. So this TCP is a kind of very reliable protocol. It uses different algorithms, different techniques to make it reliability. So later we'll discuss those algorithms and techniques which is used by the TCP to provide very reliable communication without any data lost. Now, after internet is developed, what has happened? The internet is just a network to connect the computers in different locations. But after the internet is developed, what happened? The Tim Berners-Lee, he has developed the World Wide Web on top of the internet, so that we can share the multimedia, that is audio, video, animation, and images. Everything can be shared through this multimedia. For that purpose, this World Wide Web was developed. In addition to that, after developing the internet, on top of that, this World Wide Web, file transfer protocol, email, video conferencing, telnet, and file sharing were added. So therefore, you can consider these are some of the services which are running on the internet. And after developing the internet, different services were added. So these are the main services which are running on the internet. Any questions you have up to now? Okay, we'll come to the World Wide Web. Now, this World Wide Web is a service which is running on the internet, which is developed in 1991 by the Tim Berners-Lee. Remember, Tim Berners-Lee is the person who developed the World Wide Web as a service on the internet. Because of that, we can share documents, images, video, animations, voice can be shared through this World Wide Web. And he is the one who developed the protocol named as HTTP, and again the HTML language. So HTTP is a hypertext transfer protocol. So later we'll discuss about this HTML. Under that we can create the web pages. In web pages, creations are done by these tags, HTML tags. Now to transfer these tags between the client and the server, so this HTTP is used. So that's a protocol to transfer the HTML tags between the web server and the web client. So then remember, World Wide Web is a service which is running on the internet. It was developed by Tim Berners-Lee in 1991. And he is the person who developed the web server and the web browser. Through that, web server is a place where the websites are hosted. Okay, then we look at one of the protocol we call as a file transfer protocol, which was used earlier to transfer the files between the FTP client and the FTP server. That's a very simple protocol, which is reliable protocol because it is using the TCP. Remember, TCP is always reliable protocol. Just keep in mind, it provides more reliability. So therefore FTP is running in the TCP, therefore FTP also reliable protocol which transfer the files between the FTP client and the FTP server. Then the email, as you know, you may have used the emails. With that you can easily send the messages from one location to another location. It can be text, or it can be file, it can be images, or audio, video, animations can be attached. So this Ray Tomlinson is the person who developed the first email in 1971. So this email, remember, always separated by the username and the domain name. So in that case, domain names will be common and the username will be changing. So that is why you can see if you have the Gmail account, so in that case you can have the username, let's say like this username at, and this one is common Gmail. This is what we call the domain name. So there can be another person like this, but the domain names will be same. So then you can see there can be it is always separating a domain name and the username by this @ sign. So you can see this is common, which is we call as a domain name. From that you can identify the domain to deliver the message, and the username will be different. This will be different, and this part will be common always. So that @ sign is used to separate domain name and the username. So remember, in every email address, domain names are common, the username will be different. There can't be two people with the same username. That's when you create the email address, you need to change the username if that name is already used by some other person. So then every email address you can find these two components. Then you can find these emails. Remember, when you send the email to another person, it goes to the email server. So email server is the place where the emails are stored, or when you send the email, it comes to the server. From the server it goes to the different servers and come to the destination server. So where the email sender send the emails, it goes to the different servers are there in the internet. From there it will come to the server which is related to the receiver, and the sending the emails from your computer to the destination computer, it is done by a protocol named as SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. By using this protocol, you can send the emails from your computer to email server. So that is done by SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol. But once you send this email to the email server for the client or receiver has to download the email to his computer, which is done by another protocol named as a POP3 or POP, or there's another one called as IMAP. So that's the protocol which is used to download the emails from the server to your computer. So that is done by a separate protocol. One is called the POP, other one is called the IMAP. So then clearly understand the difference between these protocols. SMTP protocol is used to send the email from your computer to destination server. That is done by the SMTP. But once the email is received to this machine, we want to download the email to your computer. So downloading the email to this computer is done by another protocol. We will discuss that one, POP and IMAP. So this SMTP, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, is a protocol which is used to transfer the email from your computer to destination server. And once it is come to the destination server, downloading the email to your computer or destination computer is done by a POP, Post Office Protocol, that is used to retrieve the emails. Retrieve the email from the email server to your computer. Now when you want to check your email, you just go to some application of the email. Then what happens, that email will be downloaded from the email server to your computer. So that is done by this protocol named as a Post Office Protocol. And nowadays we use different one which is called as IMAP, Internet Message Access Protocol, which is having more features than the POP protocol. Therefore most of the time we are using the IMAP, Internet Message Access Protocol, to download the emails from the email server to your machine. Because in POP what happened, when you download the email, your email will be deleted from the server. But the IMAP just download the copy, your email will be retained in the server. So therefore IMAP is better than the POP. So then you can see the main advantages of the email is that it's a pre-delivery and you can send to anywhere in the world. Very quickly you can deliver, and you can attach some file, and large storages are available and environment friendly because you are not using any papers or anything to deliver the emails. So therefore these are some advantages of emails. Then the next one is a video conferencing, that is to have the meeting. People are at the different locations, but we can have the meeting together, just like we are conducting the today class here, because you are at different places, but it looks like we all are together in the one place. So that is what we call the video conferencing. This is very useful to communicate with the people who are coming from the different countries, especially when you have the meetings with the different peoples in different countries. Then you can have the meeting like this. The advantage is traveling cost and the traveling time can be minimized. And the other one is there is no need to have the special place to have the meeting, because same place you are working, you can just join to the meeting. So therefore a lot of advantages are there, that is traveling cost and traveling time can be minimized, and the special location is not needed for the meeting. And to have the video conferencing, we need to have the computer and the microphone and the camera, and webcam must be there, speaker must be there, and the internet connection is needed. So different tools can be used for this, like Zoom, Skype, Teams, like different tools can be used to make this communication with the different people at different locations. Then we have the another simple tool which is we call as a telnet. It's a simple tool which is working with the TCP/IP. This is used to connect. This used to connect to your computer, and the remote computers can be connected using this telnet application, so that you can manage your work remotely without coming to that location. Especially telnet is used to communicate with the other computer or other server from your home. So through that you can easily communicate and then make some modifications to the other machines without going to that location. So as you can see, let's say your office in Colombo, let's say you are at home in Kandy. Some instant you want to log into your computer in the Colombo very quickly and make some changes. So in that case, you cannot come from Kandy to Colombo within a few seconds. So but in that case, you can log into your machine in Colombo by using this tool called as a telnet. And then you can make all the changes or modifications easily using that tool. So it is also working with the protocol. Now if you want to, now later we'll discuss these IP addresses. Remember, in the internet every computer is identified by a number which is we call as IP address. As you can see, each mobile phone has a number. Through that you can make the communication. Similarly, you can communicate with other computers by using the IP address. So that IP addresses, if you want to get what is your IP address, you can type this command in Windows, ipconfig, and every application that you are running, we have a port number. So that port number you can get by using the command netstate network statistics. From that you can get the port numbers of the connections that you are having. So you can run this command in the command prompt. So through this command prompt, actually you can run this command. So ipconfig is used to get your IP address in your computer. You can get your IP address, IP version 4, or you can get the IP version 6 IP address also. Now later we'll discuss these IP addresses. So that is a one command you can run, ipconfigs, to get the IP configurations. We will discuss those under the networking. And again the netstate. So that will give you network statistics. That will give you the IP address and the port number. So this is the port number for each connections. You can see this is a port number. So for each connections you have, you can get the IP address and the port number. So you can see here provides a protocol that you are using, and your IP address and the destination IP addresses and their port numbers will be given to make the communication. Now these are simple commands that we need to use to make the communication, but these things will be discussed in detail later. At the moment, just have some idea about these commands. Later we'll discuss in detail how you can work with these commands. The next one is mobile communication. That is actually mobile phones. We know this mobile communication is very important. As you know, everyone is using this mobile phone, where it has a full duplex communication between the your mobile phone and other mobile phone can be connected. The next one is a cloud computing. So the cloud computing idea is that we can have all the resources, all the services on the internet. The idea is when you have the resources and the service in the internet, the advantage is you can access it from anywhere at any time. Remember, in the cloud, the main advantage is you can access to the resources from anywhere at any time. And again, the another thing you should know regarding the cloud is that we are going to hire the resources. We are not going to buy the resources. So in the cloud, we have all the services and the resources, but we are not going to buy any of these, but we are going to hire the resources, because when you hire, cost is low, and again our responsibilities are also less, because when you hire something. But when you buy something, cost is very higher, and again you get more responsibilities. Now as an example, if you want to go from here to somewhere, one option is you can buy a car and you can just use it to go to that destination. But if you are going to buy a car, then you can see it is very expensive. We know these vehicles are very expensive. And once you buy the car, then other responsibilities are coming to you. That is, when you buy the car, remember, you need to think about the insurance policies, registrations. If any accidents are occurred, we have to repair them, or responsibilities are coming. But let's say you want to go some location or destination, another option is, instead of buying a vehicle, you can hire the vehicles. Now you can see there are a lot of hire the tools. You can hire the vehicle like this Uber and the Pick Me. Like there are different things you can access to find out this hire in the vehicles. So in that case, when you hire the vehicle, what is the advantage? Now if you are going to buy a vehicle, you have to spend millions of rupees. But if you are hiring the vehicle, you have to spend very less amount of money, just go to that destination. Then the other thing is, when you hire the vehicle, you don't need to think about the insurance policy, registrations, or if any accidents are occurred, no matter for you. You can exit from that vehicle, you can just use another vehicle. You don't need to think about the repairing of the vehicle. So like that, remember, there are a lot of advantages of hiring the resources, as I have given this example. So the cloud computing, the main idea is to hire the resources. We are not going to buy the resources. So which has many advantages. Just give me a second. Yeah. Good morning. Oh. Oh. sorry, now the cloud computing, remember the idea is we have all resources and the services on the internet. We are not going to buy the resources, but we are going to hire the resources. Then you can see when you hire the resources, we get a lot of advantages. Yes, because we don't need to think, we don't need to spend a lot of money to buy the hardware and the software. We don't need to think about the maintenance. We don't need to think about the security. All are managed by the people who are providing these services. So mainly there are three services given by the cloud. One is IaaS, other one is a PaaS, and SaaS. So IaaS means infrastructure as a service. PaaS means platform as a service. SaaS means software as a service. Now infrastructure means we want to hire some storage, some infrastructure is needed. In that case, you can hire this infrastructure for your organization, for your application, some storage, some resources can be hired. That is what we call the IaaS. Platform as a service means it provides some platforms, maybe operating system, maybe databases. We know these operating systems are very expensive. In that case, we can hire them, but we are not going to pay. We are not going to buy the resources. You can have some platforms. And software means some softwares are, we know, very expensive. In that case, we are going to hire the software. So therefore, you need to spend a lot of money for that, because you are going to just hire these resources. So then you can hire the infrastructure or platforms or the software. So those are the three services given in cloud computing. So then mainly you have to remember in cloud computing, now the Gmail is a kind of example. That's a software as a service. So in that case, you can see when you create the Gmail account, automatically the Gmail provides the space to save your emails. All the emails which are coming to you will be saved in their email server. So that is not in your machine actually. Those are saved in your email server. So that is also service. Now basically in the cloud computing, you must remember the resources we are hiring, but we are not going to buy the resources. Okay, this is what we have to complete in the under the unit 1.2. So there we have discussed comparisons between the manual and the computerized system, introduction to the ICT, and introduction to the internet and World Wide Web, and FTP protocol, email, and SMTP, and POP and IMAP protocols, Telnet, cloud computing. So that's what we have discussed in today's class.